So there is a really big question that I want to know, which is how old am I? I've put on this magazine 14 billion years old. I say that because Snicker bar is my favorite, and it's created 9 years. It was created 9 years after the Milky Way. If the Milky Way represents 21 billion, which was when I believe the MW was created, um, then I feel like that's pointing at me being 14 billion. But technically, there could be other meanings behind that, because it could actually just say that this was the first time that I created a timeline um, on in the MW. There's a few other ones that I like, Twix and Bounty and the Maltesers. The Maltesers is strange though, because I love Maltesers, but I prefer the round ones with the big biscuit inside. The truffle ones kind of are more chocolate and less of the bits inside, and I feel like I have strong memories of eating that chocolate with the like a truffle, but with the full biscuit inside. And when I eat these ones, I'm just like, well, this isn't my memory of it. It's almost like I have a memory from a different timeline where that's not the same. But I feel like this it's a sign. Like if these represent other timelines, because I wouldn't be surprised if I worked on the MW before. I feel like if you're a god who goes all over the universe making timelines, and if the MW is as big as what humans claim it is, um, I would say, well, look, it's very very likely that I've created other timelines in the MW, timelines that you probably wouldn't know that exist, because I feel like the sun dies when I leave a place. But at the same time, suns live for a very, very long time. So you might argue, if I'm only 14 billion, how can I be 70 suns? The answer would be that it's suns that have a planet revolving around it. As soon as that planet that's revolving around the sun becomes useless, and say if the next planet in line is a long way off being useful, or being able to have life in it, if it's not at the right temperature, for a planet to have life, it needs to have the right temperature, and it needs to have there's some basic things that it needs. And therefore, when I say one sun at a time, one sun policy, I do mean one sun, as in, making sure the planets are, and then I think it's waiting for the next planet to be ready. But it's true that if the planet that you're working on doesn't manage to create rockets, doesn't manage to create a system or something that can help them go into the next planet, it's highly likely that if the planet that they're living on dies, if they can't get to another planet, then they're going to die. That's just how it is. Now, it could be a case of waiting a few million years, like putting yourself to sleep. And I think that's definitely possible, to put yourself to sleep and wait until the time is right for the next planet to be ready. If the difference between when, say, Earth and Mars, if the difference between Earth dying and Mars being alive, being ready, being usable, being able to be lived on, if that difference is so different that humans aren't able to survive it, which, even if they make it to Mars, even if they do start living on it, can they breathe? Is they going Where are they going to get their oxygen from? Is there enough energy? If the sun's too far away, then the sun is the biggest source of energy, best source of energy. If water doesn't exist, then, well, if water doesn't exist, how are you going to survive? How are you going to get the energy? How are you going to live? And I think the answer is, you're not going to. And I think, as gods, there's a certain period of time that you can sleep for without dying. I know that between the time of the dinosaurs and now, that is how long I can kind of sleep for without dying. But then again, my brain would have been active. My brain would have been there setting up the timeline. So maybe I wasn't actually sleeping, but rather I was just in some sort of imagination land where I'm trying to merge my imagination with living things, and trying to kind of combine the two, I guess, your will versus my will. Um, and yeah, so I feel like that's how it works. Um, but yeah, the dinosaurs before Eve came down, there would have been a lot of time where I didn't do that much. You could create things like tigers and stuff. So there is a lot to do, but could I really occupy myself for 66 billion years, between, Eve was only 23,000 years ago. That's not even a billion. That's like a fraction of a billion. So there would have been, 60, 65.5 billion years, I think I might have been able to do what I needed to, but I would have had to probably sleep during interviews, and I think that's possible to do. But if you sleep for too long, I think that's when you die, and it's like you sleep and then you just never wake up because you lose you lose your will to do things, and I think that's how you die. But I don't really know, but however long the wait is between Earth dying and Mars, Mars surviving, it'd be much better if you can get there, and you can get there and find a way of making water form there or something. That would be so much better because I don't have to do the timeline again, or um, I don't have to like go through being Eve again and having to form everything. It would be a lot easier if you can get there, and take animals or crate animals, take babies over there and form, and that would be much better. But if it's not possible, then it's something I'm going to have to do. But at the same time, if the wait between the two planets is so long, um, that might be why I go elsewhere. And so if you think 14 billion years isn't enough to do 70 suns. Suns live a long time. It might not be that I've actually lived on a sun from the beginning of the sun's birth to the end of the sun's birth, but rather I've just lived in that sun for a period of time to use the planets. And then when the planet died, and maybe finding that it was too long a wait to wait for the next planet, going elsewhere. And yeah, I think the souls that are live in the planet, they're slightly different because they they might be a different kind of sleep. That might be more like, if you create Chat GPT, but if you create mini people, it's more like coding. It's more coding. I think human souls are more like coding souls. Hence, they can be brought back to life providing they have a body to be brought back to life in. So I feel like souls of of souls of humans are different to souls of gods. Souls of gods their data is so massive that it can disappear or just disintegrate. Like people who have conquered land. If a land gets too big, if an empire gets too big, it sometimes just crumbles and splits up. And I feel like if a god's soul gets too big, it can just fade away and die. Whereas when you're younger, the Matrix, providing there's sort of providing there's a sun to burn, I think that this soul coding of what makes your soul code still exists even if you don't. And then when you get another life, your soul code starts waking up, and that's when you get a life. But yeah, when you're a god and especially when you leave a planet too, your coding isn't. It's in your imagination. Your coding becomes in your imagination rather than in a sun. And I feel like there's truth to that. Maybe I'm just saying things that are not true. Maybe I'm just creating a false religion. But I know that in false religions there is truth in false religions, just like there is truth in all the false religions that people have created. I've never really looked at Hindu gods because it's all about loads of gods. But now that I am starting to believe in loads of gods, they're just not here on this planet. It's making me think that maybe there's truth behind the gods in some of their religions, but they've just focused on a different aspect of religion. They've thought about the sort of the larger aspect of it. But the thing is that they do worship male gods, and I don't believe there's truth in male gods. It's interesting though with the chess piece. You know, people see the king as being the most important, um, and it is. If the king dies, you've lost the game. But I think in reality, the king is actually supposed to just represent the people. It's supposed to represent humans, and all the others represent gods. But at the end of the day, a god without people is nothing. So if you lose your king, you become nothing because you have nothing. Like basically, kings are actually like babies. They're like children of the gods, and well, gods without children, when they have nothing to do, that they'll lose interest, they'll lose their life, they'll rest, and they'll never come back again. But you come back because of your interest in wanting to have children, because they interest you, and they make things like theme parks, and you can like be like, oh, there's a theme park and this is nice, and you know, it can keep your memory active, your soul active, your conscience active. And yeah, the chessboard without a king is like a god without people. And although queen gods can go to a different galaxy, you know, a chessboard is all flat, just like a galaxy is kind of all flat, so that kind of represents the god. And us, a queen god represents queen gods that can go anywhere. But it's, I think it is actually, because it's all on a flat board, it is actually queen gods within the same galaxy, mega galaxy, not just galaxy, but say mega galaxy, as in um, like the MW or other galaxies around. But I don't think others are quite as big. But yeah, that's why I would separate a traveler god, a traveler queen god. That's more, that piece isn't on. The traveler queen god isn't. Imagine there's lots of chessboards. I did this actually when I was at school. I was very good actually, and I was playing one of the best champions of the time, and I was one of the ones that kept playing for the longest. It's a memory that I have when I was at Fitzjohn's Primary School, just around when I was in year six or something. There was a champion chess game, and even though I didn't really play it that much, um, I I was playing one of this person who kept going round to all these different boards. So if you can imagine the person that goes around to all these different chessboards being like a traveler queen, going to all the different galaxies and trying to, you know, play all the characters, including the queen. You know, I don't really like the MW name very much, and I feel like if I was to create different timelines, I wouldn't want to stay in the MW. I would want to go all over the place. So I'd want to be like that champion chess player who went round to all the different ones, and just playing a piece in each of them. And just like I would want to just play a timeline in all of them, hence conquer like the universe rather than just the MW. Even though the MW is massive and is, you know, is going to take a long time. But how many? There's like five of the chocolate bars in the celebration box. I feel like the celebration box could represent like the whole of the MW. The Milky Way was the first one created, and all the other chocolates. I looked at the dates on the other chocolates, and they were actually created a lot later. Like one of them, the Twix, I think, was like this 1960s or something, so much later. But if you see the celebrations box as being like the MW and all the others being sort of created afterwards, that's how I would see it. I would say the Snicker could point it. So yeah, I have to talk about the going back to how old I am. That's what I was trying to make. That's what I was trying to talk about at the beginning of this video. How old am I? You know, I think I could be that 14 one because that Snicker bar shows that. Um, Maybe I came here at that point, 9 billion years after the creation of MW, or maybe it's just that I was on lots of different planets, and the first time I attempted to make a timeline on the MW was that 14 billion year time frame. And because there's five other chocolates that I liked, or four and a half, should I say, because the Malteser one was like half. It's half nice. I would say it's half nice. Maybe I had like a really short four and a half. Maybe one of the timelines was really short. So maybe I have already done, but that's a big question though, because if I have done four timelines in the MW, that means that, you know, for each timeline I've done, there probably would be, I don't know, are we talking 10? Are we talking 100? Are we talking 1,000 gods? Are we talking 10,000 gods? You know, I don't know how many I've made, but they're somewhere.